Maybe you recognize me from my television debut a couple of years ago on America's Most Wanted. I was the owner of a sporting goods store, and my employee came back to tell me the store was being robbed, and that's when I said, "What the hell?" I chased the guy to the parking lot because he had a bag full of my money, and I said, "Hey!" A couple of weeks ago, I had the TV on and a Saturday night, not much to do, and I heard my voice say, "What the hell?" Hey! It was a rerun. Which means they haven't caught the guy. Which means I get a residual check for
Okay, let me tell you, today we have, this man is a mother. I was going to say a mother from another brother, but I meant I'm a brother from another mother.
Oh, that works.
A character actor personified.
Oh.
Theater, film, TV, video games. He's done it all. I mean, films like Last Dance, Sleepwalk, the Lost Sword. He's done plays like the long-running hit Bar None, the comedy murder mystery. And then, of course, on the internet, Michael Vaccaro's Child of the 70s. I met him, I think in 1990, when I auditioned for this wonderful long-running comedy show hit in San Francisco, Bar None. And we've been friends ever since. His character, by the way, his creation of Kent Chadwick is legendary. And here he is, Greg Lucey. Hello.
Hello. It's a real pleasure to be here. We go back a long time, and it's fun to think about those Bar None days. You know, I made a list of the people from that show, but I guess, you know, Sally Dana, Carrie Collier, Ellen Lindbergh, Fred Raker, Terry Ward, Mark Stickland, David Zimmerman, Kim Richards, Kirk Livingston, Janine Shahota, Zach Luna. There were 40 actors over the 4-year period. And I ran into 4 actors from Bar None down here. You, of course. Carrie Collier was here at the time. She's doing theater now in Montana and also Monterey. Ellen Lindbergh is teaching technical and design aspects of film. And she's also a designer that's worked at for LA Symphony and Juilliard, her designs. And also Susan Collegian, I don't know if you remember, Susan, she was a stage manager there. I came down here, she was working at a stable, and she was bringing underprivileged kids to do therapy with horses. She was doing scenes from Shakespeare on horseback. And when I heard it, I thought, oh no, this can't, oh my God. I've never seen anything like it. But she would choose scenes. She had an ensemble of terrific actors.
Yeah.
And that were doing live shit, and you could hear every word on this was horseback, and she's up in Ojai now, doing theater. But yes, it's fun to connect with the old Bar None people. And Rich Baker, I got to mention his name. He's the one who produced it. And I do have one funny story that I've never told anyone. We were celebrating the 1000th performance. I think that was it. So we all went, Rich Baker took us out for dinner at a nice restaurant. We all had a great time. I ordered fish. I went home. I wish I could remember. Cod, maybe. I went home that night, and I was had roommates at the time. I got food poisoning.
Oh.
and I ended up projectile vomiting all of the walls. And I yelled to my roommates, "Come and see this! Come and see this!" And I'm like 6 feet out. So that's an interesting Bar None story. Um,
So that's how you got those walls painted.
that is sort of greenish.
Oh,
But Bar None was really good to me because after that, it sort of led to other things during the course of. I want to send a message out to people. I got a three line role on Midnight Caller, and San Francisco was very rare to get shows coming to San Francisco. So I got this 3-line thing with the lead, Gary Cole. He was great, and I was kind of nervous about the whole thing, but it went really well.
I remember when you did that.
Yeah, and so here's my lesson to everyone. In the day, we had pagers. I was new to the whole pager setup, and I was starting a new job, and I didn't want to. That first day, I didn't want to be, I thought. So I didn't use my pager, and the next day, the agent calls and says, "Greg, where were you yesterday?" And I explained, and she said they called and wanted you to audition for a regular.
Oh,
so near misses can drive you crazy. It was the same with Basic Instinct. That was kind of a controversial movie that showed up there. I was to go in about midnight for call time, and I had a child with me in the scene, and my family, my wife, and we were seated next to Michael Douglas and all the leads, and they started swearing and using vile language, and I was supposed to get up with my family, just move away. Yeah. Well, I got the call at midnight that said, "Greg, we can't keep a child up past midnight because of rules. We're running late." So they cancel the scene. Another near miss. And then another one, which was an interesting story. Brian De Palma was shooting down in San Jose.
You remember?
So I went down.
That was
It was the John Lithgow film.
Yes. Oh.
That's okay. It'll come to one of us, maybe.
And he's my favorite director, and I can't think of the.
That's all right. It'll come to us. But I went down, and the assistant came over. There was Levita Davidovich in the background. I'm like, oh, okay. And the assistant came over and said, explain the scene to me and what Mr. De Palma was looking for. And he said, someone will be down to read for you in 10 minutes. Well, 10 minutes later, somebody came down to read with me, and it was Brian De Palma. Oh. So there I was improvising. This is where improv acting, I did a lot of improv in San Francisco, and it comes in handy because you got to pull stuff out of nowhere. And so the scene was at a motel, and I was a motel clerk, but this gentleman couldn't speak English, and he was starting to park his truck there. And I'm supposed to say, "Don't park there, don't park there." So I was about to finish the improv, and I couldn't figure out how to end it. I'm like, I'd done every hand gesture I could possibly do to say, "Don't," because I was trying to get through to this guy. Yeah. And I couldn't figure out how to end it. So I went over to Brian De Palma in front of his face and went, "Is anything getting through in there? Is anything getting through in there?" And he cracked up. So I didn't get the part, another near miss, but he laughed a lot. And so those near misses, they sort of count in a way.
Oh gosh, yeah.
But they're like, that's where improv comes in handy, because you gotta think fast. And so Bar None, I should explain to people, the first half was scripted.
Yeah.
And the second half allowed us to improvise. So we got to make up our own stuff. And later I went on to use that character, which somebody referred to as my alter ego, which is true. He's a milquetoast kind of guy that even if you insult him, he'll like you for talking to him, He's that kind of a guy. And I went on later to turn it into a solo show. I studied at the Marsh for a bit with Charlie Varon. So that it just carried through. And I had never been on stage as Greg. I always create a character. And later on, I can talk down here, I wanted to change that about 2 years ago. I said, so I went to Second City here and a great teacher. And teachers are like, if you find a great one, that resonates with you. I took the class 4 times and I ended up at the Moth, and it gave me deadlines of telling, write it, how to approach it, find stuff from my real life. And so finally I appeared as Greg on stage, which is scary. A lot of people, I hadn't done that before, but the stories were worthy, and the writing held up, because everybody's got weird things that have happened.
Are you thinking of doing this?
I have done it already at the Moth,
Right.
but then COVID,
Yeah.
and so that sort of changed the flavor of everything, of course, for performance. And so then it stopped, and I was even thinking of doing stand-up again, and I pulled out all my comedy stuff, and I wondered if it would resonate. But I've had a tough life there. Yeah, I was raised by my grandmother, and she was crazy. And I was raised on a Pepperidge farm.
Was this in Chicago?
No, I was raised on a Pepperidge farm, and every day I had to get up at the crack of dawn to pick cookies. And grandma sent me to a private school, crayons in a locked closet. And she would never waste money on diapers, so she used aluminum foil.
Oh.
And to this day, every time I pass by a house with aluminum siding, I wet my pants. So
I remember that one.
As you can see, I have issues, and therapy is like what, $500 an hour? Who can afford that? So of course,
Oh.
I have my own free therapist. He's okay. In fact, that's his name. Okay, you can say anything to him. In fact, you can do anything you want to him, and he's still okay. My bar none, my bar none partner, and he's still with me. He packs easily, and I've even started taking him to auditions, and maybe I shouldn't, but in the parking lot, maybe they'll. Okay.
Is that the okay?
This is okay. This is him.
I haven't seen him in years.
No, maybe we can do a Meet the Biz with.
Just okay.
He can tell you all of my secrets, because service pets, they don't allow animals in my apartment building, but he knows me better than anyone.
I tell you, that got me like so back there. And when you brought Okaya and your lines was like, oh yeah, there were certain moments like, and then you brought out okay, and then it brought back that I was your understudy, not that often because you always worked.
Well,
but it was so it's like, how can you? I mean, I did my own little Kent Chadwick, but you can't top. It's like going understudying.
But see, understudy has such great value because you got to do other parts as well.
Well, that was the fun part of it. I mean, I got to do Kent Chadwick, and then I got to do Mickey, the flaming bartender. Yes.
Oh, and that was great. Randy Wigan too was down here when I came down. But you were talk about legendary. You were great as the bartender.
That was fun.
I should explain. This is sort of an audience participation play that we did, and so we could talk directly to people. And Randy would time the laughs that I got, other people as well, but he would actually look at his watch and time how long they laughed. And I got my record laugh there, 60 seconds. And the line was some lady had taken a liking to me. That kind of, because the nerd, the sweet, dumb nerd. And I went out and flirted with her. And the line I got my laugh on was, maybe I'll give you a call when my testicles descend. And so sure enough, it got 60 minutes or 60 seconds. And as you can see, I still remember it. So food poisoning was not the only.
This is so great because you just transported me behind the bar when I was understudying Mickey, and you would say that, or you would say a line like that. In fact, I remember that line, and I had to grab a drink or I had to go underneath because I was laughing.
Yeah, it was all really, and Rich was very kind about letting. I remember the first time I did this with Terry Ward, I surprised him, and I had it in my briefcase.
Yeah.
And he says, "What's this? What's this, pal? What's that? Oh, that's okay. What's this? Okay, you can." And then anyway, he needs a rest probably. I'll set him over here. But it was, and this came from me from my friend Bob Entwistle. He used okay earlier, decades earlier in a play, and he allowed me. So through him, okay became an actor on the stage. So thank you, Bob. So let's see what I just keep going on.
No, I love this. I mean, even now, when was Kent Chadwick born in Barnum? Because I know that
Oh, here's how
you started years before. You were, what is it? You were the founding member of the Guild Repertory. You worked at the Steppenwolf, and you founded an improv group in San Francisco.
Yes, I'll correct that. The Gill was just down the street from Steppenwolf. I'm from Chicago, and when I got out of school, I was 20 or 21. My dad had died. I was thinking of going other places, but my dad had died, so I stuck around Chicago with mom to help out, whatever. So I started auditioning, and I was getting parts, and that's where I was learning on the job, and there's an interesting difference between theater and film acting. Theater acting, you build an ensemble, so you can work together. I'll talk more about this. I didn't really do a lot of film work. I did some in San Francisco, but until I moved here when I was 60. But when I got to San Francisco, I did a lot of comedy, and I thought, well, I'll try stand-up, right? So I created Kent Chadwick because I needed to hide behind. And I had a clipboard. With my jokes on it. And at the time, there was a mayoral election.
Yeah.
I think Dianne Feinstein and someone else. And so my gimmick I was running for mayor, but I couldn't figure out how to answer these hard questions. And would the audience help me? Would you help me with these? They were true and false, and they were stupid. In fact, the first joke I ever said, I had 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, if Yoko Ono married Sonny Bono, she'd be Yoko Ono Bono. And then somebody would yell, maybe they'd had 6 martinis, I don't know. True, thank you. And then I'd move on to these other ridiculous questions, but they always guaranteed some participation.
Yeah.
Because they were like, oh no, what's he doing? But and so then I got a couple of gigs doing stand-up, and I was driving down to San Jose, and it was long, lonely drives home, and every comic will say, they went okay, but then I auditioned for Bar None, and they needed a nerd. So I got to transfer that character that I had already sort of created right into Bar None.
Was the character a different name before?
It didn't have a name. It was Greg doing stand-up. So then the character's name became Kent Chadwick, because that was the name in Bar None. And I got to just transfer my stand-up comedy persona into Bar None. And so, which was great, because I kept staying in Bar None, because I, auditioning somewhere else, who know, but I was getting the sort of the joy from the character that I'd already created. And I'll say this too, comedy, as people will tell you, is a survival tool. When times are tough, and when you lose your sense of humor, you're going, oh, how am I going to get it back? How am I going to get it back? And if you look back at cavemen, I talked about storytelling, and sometimes if you go back to the cavemen, those drawings on the walls, there were 2 main subjects. Survival. They were stories about survival, which we still tell. And it showed that people need to express themselves. Then my own upbringing was kind of challenging sometimes. There was a moment, my mother, great person. I'll throw it out there. My grandmother had spent some time in an institution, and my aunt. And so there were some moments when mom would flip into these rages. And she, and that was what it was. And she sought help, and, you know, because she had a really, you learn later the stuff that she went through. And then as you get older, you learn and say, oh my God. But there was a moment when she was, every Saturday morning, she would just get up and yell at us. You know, usually a lot of other parents would have tasks to, okay, go do your tasks. You won't get your allowance, whatever. We didn't have a list. There was nothing really organized. Work, clean, whatever. And I remember she had flown into one of these rages, and my brother and I were like, okay, what do we do now? And we were in my room, and it was, you know, clothes piled up, and I was 8, I think, 7 or 8. And there's this old phrase, those pants look so dirty they could probably stand up by themselves. And so during a lull in the rage, I reached down to those pants and I pulled them up. And of course they fell to the ground. And I pulled them up, and she cracked up. She just started laughing. Are you trying to stand? It broke. It broke through the rage. And I've come to realize that was sort of my survival tool. If I could make mom laugh, you know, and it sort of strengthened how we were dealing with each other. And she sort of expected it in some ways, or she was curious about it. But to this day, humor for those who are in those challenging situations can be a real survival tool. And I think that's why I wrote a character once in something I was doing about a person who had a condition. He was diagnosed by an online therapist, right? Had a condition he could not stop. He was a compulsive joke teller. He could not stop. Yeah. And so no matter what, you know, and you've all got that relative or friend is like, oh my God.
Right.
And it might be a legitimate condition. Yeah. And I gave it a name. But anyway, what was the question?
No. One thing you mentioned, I do have to bring up. You said a couple minutes back that you hid behind your character.
Yeah.
Where did that come from? Or
I think it came from well, it's an interesting question. It came from a fear of being Greg, and the real person in front. You know, the first play I did, it was in college. I had auditioned a number of times. A friend of mine had auditioned for a play, and I thought, well, maybe I'll try that. And I didn't get in, and I didn't get in, and I didn't get in, but I finally got on the play, and I thought, oh, here I go. And it was a play called Peer Gynt. It was a 3-hour thing, and the director knew that one actor playing all this huge part would be too challenging. So he split it into pairs. The first act was Peer Gynt, the lead, as a young man, then Peer Gynt as a middle age, and Peer Gynt. I auditioned for the young man, and got the old man. So that gives you my auditioning skills. But I decided, because of fear, I have bad eyes, and I always have since I was 6. Which I can talk about later too, because, well, they didn't find out till I was 6 or 7. So those formative years were like, you know, here, catch this. You know, this fear of, and then you realize, oh, I can see it now, 6 years later. But I would bump into things, and what's wrong with him? And, well, I couldn't see. But this first play, I decided that I was so frightened, I didn't wear contacts. I just went out with my normal bad vision. That way I couldn't decipher the faces of the people in the audience. I couldn't tell. My parents said later they had fallen asleep. So, you know, I couldn't tell that. And I did. I still have a scar here because I was running, and then I missed, you know, I hit the wall. But it made me not cognizant of that issue, that stage fright or whatever, because I couldn't clearly, I just saw people. not specific people. And I got so into the part, it ended up, I actually won an award for that play. But I always say this, the next one sucked. But I always say this, had I been bad, had I, lost it or been, not gotten good reviews, I might not have gone on to do theater ever again. It became sort of a bit of an addiction. It's because I didn't know what I wanted to do in life.
Well, did you think what you might do instead?
I was getting a teaching degree thinking, well, I'll be a teacher because I didn't know what else. So I did get a teaching degree. But I found during that 2 hours on a stage, I knew exactly where I was supposed to be, who I was supposed to be, what I was supposed to say. And it focused me for that 2 hours. In real life, I was kind of aimless. But I thought, okay, this is not only a sense of discovery of the character, but it's a discovery of myself as well. So I got to, I knew exactly what I was supposed to do for that 2 hours. I'd go home and go, now what am I gonna do?
Yeah.
So I think it became a sort of codependent for me, but which was okay.
Yeah.
Because because that's what brought me out and of my inner lack of confidence. It gave me something that I learned. Maybe I can do this. Maybe I can do this. And that's why I kept auditioning. And sure enough, I keep doing it.
Serious. Shit. Don't move. I'll shoot.
Go screw yourself. Boy, you're not the brightest bulb in a chandelier, are you?
Did you say to me?
The judge has ordered that you undergo a forensic sentencing evaluation. They want to know how dangerous you are.
If you say so.
I need you to know that anything you say in here is not confidential. A report will be written up and submitted to the judge.
I like your tie.
Have you ever abused drugs?
It's a little crooked, though.
Miss Johnson.
Christine.
What would you say if I told you this safe sees into your heart of hearts and can make your deepest desires become reality? Will you take a leap of faith? The point is as follows. You have a tape of my wife getting fucked!
Please. I want to learn and
Open your eyes. Do not be confused about this. Bad things are going to happen to you. Doesn't matter. They're all dead now anyway.
Your friends, too?
Close ones. There's no one to share memories with anymore, you know? There's no one around to remember.
You filming?
Yes. Say something.
It's not funny.
Oh, there's that face again. You're so cute when you're upset. Come on, get into it. Say something to the camera.
Nick, I love you. You're stupid. I already said it. Play some music. Play my song, please.
Stethoscope, huh? What are you, a doctor?
No. I am an aerobics instructor, and I have to check my heart rate every 20 minutes. It's part of the rule.
What the hell is this?
Oh, that's okay.
No, what is this, pal?
That's okay.
What is this?
That's his name, okay. You can do anything you want to him, and he's still okay.